Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. Today on Cookiecast, it's up Liante. So Lianne's back, and she's bringing the heat, maybe. There'll be discussions about running, games, movies, TV, and probably something that's gone on since last time. So yeah. If you're checking us out on YouTube, that's great. As long as you're making sure to subscribe, that's even better. If you're not checking us out there, do go over and check us out. Give us a cheeky subscribe, it doesn't hurt, and it certainly helps the channel and all that. Click for notifications and you'll get updates for when new videos are available, and then you can keep up to date. So yeah, so here we go. This is Cookiecast up Liante.
Hello, podcast people. Let me just get the camera rolling. And we'll get cracking. Camera is on. Microphone is on. Or audio is on. Microphone is in position. Let's go. Okay. We're good. Right. Hello. People, welcome to Up Liante again. What podcast are we on? Podcast 10. 10 whole podcast. So, today, let's start with running. I'm pleased to report that there has been a run, which is nothing short of a miracle, really. So I think it's been just short of 2 weeks since I last went for a run. So I thought, given that I needed to record today's podcast, I couldn't really come back saying that I hadn't been running again, so I got myself out of bed earlier than normal this morning before the baby woke up and went out for a short run. Wasn't sure how it was going to go given the length of time since I last did one, but I managed to do my mile. In fact, it was a bit more than a mile, 1.2 miles in, I think I did my mile in 10 minutes 40, and then it was 1.2 in 12 and a half minutes or something. So very happy with that, glad that I got out and did it first thing, it was done. It was a lot cooler this morning, so it was nice and fresh, unlike sort of most of the afternoons have turned very warm and muggy. With the current level of cloud cover. So yeah, pleased to have got it out of the way whilst the weather was a little bit better for running. I will endeavour to do a couple more this week. I want to try and get myself back on track, and I've had an email today to say that the July entries for Race at Your Pace, that was the thing I was talking about where you can sign up and you commit to doing X number of miles over the course of the month, called Race at Your Pace. So I've already had an email from them, given that I've entered previously. They send me an email every month to let me know when the entries are open for the coming month, so that's open for July, so I should get myself signed up really, and commit to doing it. Like I said, I want to do, I think 25 is a reasonable target. That means I either need to do 25 lots of my single mile, or I need to try and increase a couple of those to 2 or 3 miles. So that's why I want to try and start getting back out there a bit more regularly again as of this week, so that by the time July comes around then I'm in a fitter state. I might leave signing up just so that I can assess if I have actually got back out there, and sort of exactly what I've just said, so that maybe I could sign up to do the 50 mile if I was feeling a little bit more confident, or just go ahead with the 25. But if I delay signing up, then perhaps I could push myself to do the slightly increased amount. We'll see what happens. So I would like to come back next week and say that I've had more than one run. Maybe the 3 or 4 would be good. especially because I've still been doing PE with Joe, and that's fine. I've been doing that on my non-working days, so on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then I've been doing another session on a Saturday. However, when I did this morning's Joe, it's Tuesday today, he said this week is the last full week that he's actually doing. So as of next week, he's only doing Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. And I have no idea what he's doing thereafter. So he's suggesting that people that still want to continue doing it every day need to revert back to some of his earlier recorded sessions or any of his workouts that he's got on there. So not sure what I'll do at that point. I've been keen to try and get back into, although I've been doing bits and pieces of yoga, I've been keen to get back into some actual, like, following a recorded video, so maybe that will be my opportunity to do that. It won't eat into my time anymore because I will be replacing Joe with the yoga. I went for a walk the other day with one of my baby friends, and she made reference to a yoga instructor on YouTube that we used to do at work. It was sessions we used to provide sort of as a we have something at work called Health Heroes. They offer various activities, and one of those that we offered was yoga on YouTube, and it's Yoga with Adrienne. She does like a 30-day workout session, various single session focusing on different parts of the body. So I might try and start doing some of those sessions instead of PE with Joe. Or I can just go back to some earlier recorded sessions with Joe. We'll see. I guess that's what I'm saying. But I'm a little bit concerned, I guess is the word, that Joe is dropping off. So let's see what happens there. And then walks. I don't seem to have had many walks over the last week. The weather hasn't been great. It's been very rainy. I did go for one last Thursday afternoon, as I just mentioned, with in reference to one of my baby friends, but I actually went with two of the baby friends and the babies. It's the first time sort of all three of us have been back in physical proximity to each other. That was following the new government guidelines, sort of the change that we're allowed to be out in up to groups of 6 from different households, as long as you maintain social distancing. So we all went for a walk together. A little bit raining, a little bit windy, but it was just nice to be in the same vicinity as everybody. And I mean, one of them I've been going for various walks with anyway, but it was the third person that I've not actually physically seen apart from on video calls until recently. So yeah, it's nice to hear the babies chattering to each other and sort of the developments they've gone through. You do hear it on video calls and stuff, but it's not the same as being in the physical presence of somebody. That was quite nice. And just along those lines, following the most recent government guidelines where people of single person households can now interact directly with another household, sort of relaxing the 2 metre social distancing. My mum was in a position to come round at the weekend and actually spend some time in the house. Just makes a difference being able to go inside, but she was able to spend some quality time with the baby, actually hold her, interact with her and play, and not feel like she was constantly having to keep away and maintain that distance from her. So that was really nice to see. I think she came back on Sunday for a little while, although she didn't come inside. And then I've also seen my dad this afternoon. Not seen him again for probably maybe 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So I've been over to see him this afternoon. Thought we were going to go for a walk, but the weather wasn't supposed to be great. It was going to be raining and I think thunderstorms, but that didn't transpire and the sun came out quite nice, so we were able to sit in his back garden and sort of keep our distance from each other. But again, nice to catch up. Had planned to take his Father's Day card and gift over there, but it hadn't arrived, so I think he's coming back to see us at the weekend on Saturday. So I'm not seeing him for 3 weeks, but then I'll see him twice in 1 week, which is always nice. So next on my list is movies. So I've watched 3 movies over the course of the last week. The first was, I can't remember when, last Wednesday night maybe. I watched a horror film on Sky, I think it was, called Slender Man. This was something I'd heard of quite some time back. I'm sure there was a case in the media. I think I was saying this on my last podcast, and somebody had ended up attacking a friend or killing a friend, saying that Slender Man told her to do it. And I don't know, this sparked my interest. It's apparently like a like a horror story that's come through the ages of something that maybe actually happened. Not sure really, but this film, the premise of this film was a group of 3 friends find this way to summon the Slender Man, maybe a little bit more like Candyman or Bloody Mary sort of stories, and they watched this kind of video that I think it was like subliminal messaging coming through the video, and they end up summoning the Slender Man, who reaches out to them in different ways. He sort of like makes contact with them. One girl goes missing, another ends up being sort of driven insane, and the final girl's trying to... In fact, there was 4 girls in it, sorry. The last 2 girls end up trying to get their friend back that went missing, and it was... I mean, the story pans out. It's old, so if you're going to watch it, you've probably watched it. If you're not, then you probably don't care what I'm saying. But it was creepy. It wasn't scary as such. I kind of do this thing when I'm watching a film that I don't want it to make me jump. So rather than I don't cover my face, I don't sit behind a pillow. I just sit there with like one eye open and squinting out the other one, so I don't miss what happens, but I don't get the full force of the scare factor, if that makes sense. I probably sound really silly. So yeah, there was a couple of small sections where I'm just sat there with like one squinty eye trying to see what's going on, because I don't want anything to jump out and frighten me. Bear with me while I have a drink. Sorry, that was quite a long drink. So yeah, wasn't a great storyline, wasn't a great film to be fair, but it sort of ticked the boxes in terms of what I was looking for from a vaguely scary movie. So I'll probably give it a 6. A 6 on the rating factor. Not the best, certainly not the worst. Probably better than The Nun in a lot of regards, which I'd watched the week before last, reported on last week's podcast. The second film I watched, I think, was on Friday evening, and it was the second Maleficent film. I think it's Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. That was also on Sky or the Disney Channel, actually. I enjoyed that. Can't quite remember the storyline of the first Maleficent, but I knew it was a film that I'd enjoyed. And I sat and watched this one and thoroughly enjoyed that as well. I like all the magical element and all the little woodland creatures and the fantasy side of it. And Angelina Jolie does quite well in her role. She has this air of sort of a sinister air, but she's actually pretty good in this second one. I mean, not an evil character, she's on the good side, if you like. So yeah, that was quite cool. What was the name of the other guy that was in it? He was in Serenity as the bad guy. Can't remember his name now. I just know when I saw it on the credits I was like, oh, that's that guy. But no, it's not coming back to me. But yes, that was a good film. I enjoyed that. And it's got the younger Fanning sister in as well. Elle Fanning. She was in the first one as well. So yeah, I enjoyed that. That was probably a 7.5, I think. Yeah, watch it if you're interested. I'm sure you will do. The other film I watched is called 365 DNI. It was on Netflix, which I believe translates to 365 days. This was a film I'd read or seen in the sort of headlines of various news stories for reasons like to or not watch it. People watching, reporting that they'd sat down to watch it with their parents and then found it quite cringy, apparently because there's a lot of sex scenes in it, which, on watching it, there are frequent sort of references to sexual activities and sex scenes taking place. I watched this movie over sort of 3 evenings, and for want of better term, it's a it's a love story in a way, although the woman is actually kidnapped and given 365 days to fall in love with her captor. It's a little bit, I don't know, sort of not your normal approach to a love film, let's say. So I've watched this, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that might set out to watch it, but essentially the film is wrapped up within 2 months of her having been taken hostage by this mafia type Italian boss man, and the story progresses through up until this 2 month mark, where it's probably the first time it makes reference to any time frame, and then I just found that the film ended quite abruptly, sort of a bit of an ending that comes out of left field. I suppose given the fact that it makes reference to her having this year, I don't know why they didn't utilise more of the time, or it was a very bizarre ending. It was like they started out along a particular path and then just suddenly decided they'd had enough of the movie, so it was like, let's just end it there, let's call it a day. So not the ending I expected, but overall the film the storyline was, the storyline was okay. I mean, it's far-fetched and it's sort of similar lines to 50 Shades of Grey, if you've seen that, but it was sort of slightly better. I think you felt more connection between the characters than in 50 Shades of Grey. I feel like 50 Shades of Grey was quite poor casting if you've read the books, because you just didn't feel that there was any actual underlying connection between the characters in that movie, whereas this one you do. So what do I rate it? It wasn't brilliant. I'd probably give it a 6.5. It was perfectly watchable, just a little bit bizarre, and I'm not sure how feasible the storyline really was. But yeah, it just ended out of the blue, and I think I found the ending disappointing. It's not the ending I would have liked to have seen for that movie, but can't always get what you want, and not everything in life goes to plan. So I guess they were trying to add a hint of realism in some way, given the fact that the rest was quite unbelievable. You wonder why they decided just to make the ending more realistic. Anyway, watch it, see what you think, send me comments, let me know. What else have we got? TV. So finally got round to finishing 2 series, The Mandalorian and Gangs of London. Mandalorian, I've not given the best reviews over the last few weeks whilst I've been watching it. I didn't think it was that great. The ending kind of wrapped everything up and brought it all together, in terms of the sort of storyline and direction it was going, but overall I was glad just to have it finished, and I can't say I would be looking for a second series. If there is one, I'm not sure that I would bother watching it, because it wasn't my sort of thing, even though I've been a big Star Wars fan. It just didn't tick any boxes for me particularly. I was also, maybe I shouldn't say that, there was something that happened, and I don't want to give anything away, given that it's sort of like not necessarily accessible for everybody just yet. Something happened that was disappointing, and I'm not sure that they should have allowed that to happen, but also it was necessary. essentially for the episode to continue. You will know what I mean if and when you watch it, and this is the last episode I'm talking about. Overall, probably only a 6 rating for me. I know I don't normally rate TV shows, but now that I'm at the end, I guess I can. So yeah, glad that it's finished. Glad that I'm not sort of trying to keep watching it now. Gangs of London, that was good. I think that probably gets a solid 8.5 from me. The endings of the last couple of episodes, episode 9 sort of ended with this huge explosion. It was just like immense, and that was really good. And then I had the final episode, which I watched last night. It kind of didn't know which direction the story was going to go, and how it was going to wrap things up, but I think they've definitely left it open for a series 2, because some things happened towards the back end and sort of left doors wide open, especially right at the very end. So I don't know if they'll be back with another series of that. It was just high action, gore, not gore as such, but violence, definitely a violent presence in that series, and probably in a way better than Peaky Blinders, just given that it's sort of up to date. It's in our current time, and you can imagine these sorts of things go on all the time. I imagine they do, potentially even in London. I don't know, it was just, I enjoyed that. I know it took me a while to get through it. The episodes were quite intense and felt long, but it was an enjoyable series. So yeah, that's good 8.5, I think, for me. 8/8.5 for a series. I've also continued watching The Challenge, so I watched the latest episode of that. I won't keep going into detail about that because every episode is essentially the same. Somebody else has been sent home, and sort of the desire to get to the finals getting stronger within the show. So yeah, if you fancy checking that out, do any comments on it. Sorry, just knocked the microphone. What else have I been watching? I started watching another trashy TV show earlier today. Pretty sure I started watching this once before. I probably watched this episode, but it's Are You the One? It's another MTV show. And I've also intermittently been watching some kind of flower show. One of those types of shows that I like, where there is a weekly challenge. You've got probably 10 groups of entrants, and they have to build, erect, and sort of a flower design. I'm not sure what it's called. It's on Netflix. It's just easy watching, sort of like half an hour at the very back end of the evening before I go to bed. So it's not, I'm not saying it's great, but it's just easy watching to wind down at the end of the day. It's got Vic Reeves on there presenting, which was a bit bizarre. You wonder how he's ended up in that sort of role. But yeah, it's fine. So nearing the back end of this one, actually. Didn't expect it to be so quick. But games. So there's been a little bit of Mario Party being played. Not an awful lot, but I've played it probably twice over the last couple of days. But last night I made the effort, similar to going for a run this morning. Didn't want to come onto a podcast again without having played a proper game that I could focus on. So last night I put Zelda Breath of the Wild on, which is the old Zelda game I've been referring to for weeks now, saying that I'd planned to put it on but just hadn't actually got that far. So I finally put it on last night, and it was one of those things where the save game loaded. I had to do an update first, that took about 8 minutes, and then my save game loaded, and I sort of assessed where I was and thought, I vaguely remember being here. I'm in an area called, this is only relevant to anyone that's played the game, might be playing it currently. I know it's old if you are, but you may have played it and remember. But I'm in the Lost Woods, and you get various sort of clues throughout the Lost Woods, and you end up having to follow a pathway to be able to get through the woods. But if you fall off of this pathway, which isn't a sort of, it's not a marked out path, it's a case of following tree lines or things in trees, and you sort of guided around the forest by certain, I don't know, certain markers that aren't obvious, but you can find if you look carefully, kind of thing. If you fall off that pathway, then the mist comes in and you are taken back to the beginning of the forest. It's quite frustrating. So this save game loaded, and I was sort of looking where I was. I needed to run around a bit to try and remember some of the controls, remember what powers I had, what I had in my inventory, and it took a long time. I was probably playing it for about an hour. And I eventually got to this section, and I was trying to find this pathway back through the forest. I needed to follow the iron that was showing up in certain trees. So I had my magnetism vision on, and that made the iron in the mouths of these trees show up bright pink, so I could see one over there, run to that tree. I could then see some iron down there glowing pink, run to that tree. So you're sort of zigzagging across the forest. Eventually I get through this section of the forest, and lo and behold, I find myself exactly where my save game had originally loaded. So it took me about an hour to get back to where I'd originally started. However, that wasn't an hour lost, because, as I say, I'd kind of familiarised myself with how the map works, what my mission was, what I had in my inventory, had to do a tiny little bit of fighting, and then managed to get back to where I was and actually solve the shrine puzzle for that section, which I obviously hadn't previously done, because otherwise it would have saved past that point. It was an auto-save that loaded. So spent a while getting back to grips with the game to progress a tiny little bit further, and I saved it, and then I switched it off. So the next time I return to the game, I will be a little bit further than where I left it. And looking at the date on the save, it was February 2018. So this is a game that I haven't played for over 2 years. So I'm bound to have forgotten a little bit of what I was doing. So yeah, as I say, when I next go back to it, I will be a little bit more familiar with how things are working, and there's still loads of controls that I'm going to have to remind myself of, and what all the different runes do. It was quite a complex game in terms of the controls, the things that you could make. And I remember you could make your own potions and food sources if you used a little camping stove type thing to mix things up. So yeah, there's lots to get to grips with, but I'm pleased to have actually got myself back on track with a main game to focus on. So I'll be able to continue updating you on my progress on that, and we'll see how far we go. I know it was a big game, and I'm not sure how far through I am. I think one of the main objectives of the game is there's four sort of animal bosses that you have to beat, and at the point that I'm at, I've already beaten 2 of them. There's like a lizard thing and an elephant. So I know there's at least 2 big bosses to go up against, and that's potentially before a main end boss. So I think there's quite a substantial amount of the game left to go. Okay. Yeah, so that's it on my list of things to talk about. Haven't had a call with my friends this week, and we haven't had a games night with the other group of friends either, although we do now have one scheduled for Saturday. And I've got a call with my friend's girlfriends tomorrow evening. So yeah, there's a little bit more activity this week, but that inevitably means less movie time. So the balance, there'll be more to talk about in terms of catching up with people, but less on the movie front probably by the time I come back next week. So yeah, is that it? Is that all there is to report on? Yeah, let's say that's it. And we'll call it quits there, and I'll be back again next week with updates on running, PE with Joe, yoga, TV, movies, stuff. All the usual. Right, that's me out. Let's just move that back a little bit. I'll see you later. Bye.
So there you go, what do you think of that? Good. YouTube watchers, make sure you're subscribing. Be a love, make sure you have subscribed. Yeah. If you click for notifications, you'll get updates for when we've got new videos available, so you can keep up to date with the channel. That's cool. Everybody jump over to Cookiecast.com. Check us out over there. Send us some love. You can get us on social media. Give us a follow, stuff like that. You can send us an email, and the standard is if you send us an email, I'll read it out on air. So there you go. So that's it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.